Hello and welcome back to Jardin du Mayfair, heaven on earth for the watch enthusiast. Thanks for joining us on this YouTube video. Thank you to everyone who's been like, comment, share and subscribing. We've had loads and loads of newcomers to the channel, so hit that subscribe button and you'll get all the latest content as it comes. Okay, today we have something really special and close to my heart. I've been reading up, learning all about what this watch means and the historical aspect of it. It's just incredible. So I am proud to introduce to you today the Rolex Sea-Dweller 1665 double red. Those who are into vintage Rolex know that red is a pretty exciting colour. Single red 1680 Submariners and single or double red Sea-Dwellers are the grails when it comes to these old dive watches. The red element refers to the lines of red writing across the dial, and it's the same to watch collectors as a red rag to a bull. They want it, and they want it badly. So much so that to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Sea-Dweller in 2017, Rolex released a new beast in 43mm with a single line of red text on the dial stating Sea-Dweller. It was a nod to the infamous vintage reds. Naturally, Rolex nerds, being Rolex nerds, were overjoyed at the red coming back but appalled at the size of the case and the addition of a Cyclops. The traditional Sea-Dwellers never had a Cyclops, and to purists that was a big talking point. Rolex continues to delight and infuriate in equal measure. That, however, is a story for another day. Today we're having a look at this fantastic 1977 double red Sea-Dweller and looking into a bit of the history to see what these pieces are all about. I will warn you now, this will be a stripped down version, as you could technically go on about the history of this watch for weeks. The Sea-Dweller was released in 1967 in response to a very particular problem: helium. Launched in 1953, the Submariner at this point was already well into its existence and proving to be popular as a tool. But as the 60s was an era where exploration of both the skies and the seas really started to boom, it was also where the venerable Sub ran into difficulties when faced with saturation diving. So called because at great depths the body becomes saturated with gas, which needs to be dissipated slowly in a controlled manner in order to present a phenomenon known as decompression sickness. I've been reading up on decompression sickness and it's no joke. This was where decompression chambers became necessary for divers' safe transition from body-crushing depths and dry land. They would sit in a controlled decompression chamber post-deep dive until their bodies returned to normal. Bob Barth was one such diver on board the US Navy Sealab 1. The gas inside Sealab that the divers, or aquanauts as they were known, were breathing was a mix of 95% helium and 5% oxygen. As their bodies became saturated with this gas, they could stay at depth indefinitely. Barth noticed during decompression an alarming ping and plink, which was the sound of the crystal popping off his Submariner, due to the expulsion of helium which had built up within the watch whilst Bob was working in Sealab. His time in decompression wasn't long enough for helium particles to dissipate properly. The end result of this was that his watch had failed at the weakest point, the crystal. Think of a champagne bottle exploding and then you'll get the idea of the science. Barth wrote an analysis of what had happened and suggested a helium valve. At the time, the divers' DIY solution was to unscrew the crown of their Submariners, but this would be a huge disaster if they had just simply forgotten to do it. It wasn't good enough for Rolex. So, in response, Rolex designed the helium valve, which is on the side of the case. It's a relatively simple one-sided valve that allows helium to escape the case, a very important upgrade. So, the Sea-Dweller emerged, and it was named as a nod to Sealab 1. Interestingly though, there are dwellers out there that don't have the valve, which are marked by having a single line of red text rather than two. These are super early examples which look like submariners on steroids. That said, there is one known single red Sea-Dweller with a helium escape valve which was owned by Dr. Ralph Brower. As far as anybody knows, it's the only example out there and is thought to be a prototype. Rolex weren't awarded the patent to the valve until 1971, despite applying for it 3 years before. It's good to know that bureaucracy was just as much of a pain then as it is now, right? I'm the first to admit that ploughing through the various twists and turns of patents would require some paracetamol and possibly a shot of tequila. Some of you may be scratching your heads here with all the discussion of Sea-Lab and wondering why I haven't mentioned the other company widely associated with Rolex and their oceanic endeavours, Comex, Compagnie Maritime d'Expertise. When the Sea-Dweller first came into production, Comex were working exclusively with the nemesis, Omega. Rolex needed to find another partnership when the US Navy wound up testing underwater environments, partly due to being otherwise occupied with the Vietnam War and partly because Sea-Lab 3 had been a disaster which had led to a loss of life, so the mission was shelved. This left Rolex with significant worry as they had lost the testing grounds for their Sea-Dwellers, and Omega had teamed up with Comex and were testing their own super diver, which worked on the different principle of just not letting helium into the watch in the first place. Seamaster 600 Ploprof, anyone? Rolex needed to do something or risk losing the sea as well as the space race to Omega. So they filched Comex by reaching out to the booming dive company and offering to give all Comex divers free Sea-Dwellers in exchange for their analysis of the watch's performance. In 1971, the deal was sealed and had given a huge battle blow to Omega. Coincidentally, 1971 was the same year that the Sea-Dweller became available for members of the public to purchase. Rolex and Comex partnered successfully all the way to 1997, which is where we'll leave the history bit for now. So let's get back to having a good look at this Sea-Dweller, which is what I'm sure you've all been waiting for. This is a vintage double red Sea-Dweller from 1977. It has a Mark IV dial. What is a Mark IV dial? Well, collectors would track changes, small changes in variations, fonts on the dial, and give them marks as they evolved. So this is Mark IV. It's got a beautiful and creamy patina to the matching dial and hands. The case is sharp and perfectly as it should be, making this an absolutely smashing example of a 1665 double red. This particular example has undergone a full and eye-wateringly expensive service at Rolex. Since that service, it may as well have been called a vault dweller because it's been kept safe, perfectly ready for the next owner. So if you're interested in having a little bit of Rolex double red history on your wrist, then you know where to find us. Thank you guys for joining us for the 1665 double red video. Please do like, comment, share and subscribe, and we'll keep these videos coming.